Beautiful.
Hello, lovers of the world. This is Sinta speaking. I love murder mysteries. Today, I'm sharing my experience with trying out a new mystery author, Ellery Queen. I have been trying to read more people outside of Agatha Christie, and this is my first genuine successful attempt. And I owe it all thanks to the YouTube channel Summation Gathering. His videos have been really helpful with learning more about other authors from the golden age of detective fiction. And he's basically the entire reason why I even know who Ellery Queen is. Ellery Queen is a murder mystery writer in New York City who helps his police inspector father solve baffling murder cases. The Ellery Queen series were originally written by two people named Frederick Danae and Manfred Bennington Lee, who were also cousins. These are the pseudonyms or their work names. I didn't bother writing down their real names. Ellery Queen is their joint effort and seems to have developed into a Nancy Drew type of figure over the years as the writers have worked on it until Manfred Bennington Lee's death. The Ellery Queen books have been turned into radio dramas as well as a television show. Ellery Queen is both the detective and the author of the book in the series. I think the premise is that he solves the mystery and then he writes a book about it. So Ellery Queen's father, Inspector Richard Queen, is the head of the New York City Police, which grants Ellery access to many of the specific crimes. Otherwise, his friends will ask him for help or advice or ask him to solve the mystery for them. The first 10 books of the Ellery Queen series are known for two things. One is their nationality themed stories like the Spanish Cape mystery or the Roman hat mystery. And two is that there is a point in the novel where the text will stop the reader officially and say that all of the clues that are necessary to figure out the answer to the mystery have been covered, and you as the reader have the capacity to solve it yourself if you think hard enough. So this book that we are discussing today is part of those 10 books. The cousins, the writers, have decided to move on from the nationality themes as well as leaving behind that challenge to the reader that was so consistent through the first 10 books. So the thing for me is that I don't really want to read all of the Ellery Queen books, so I really relied heavily on the Summation Gathering's best books list, because whether or not our tastes align exactly remains to be seen, because even looking at his Agatha Christie ranked list is like slightly different to mine, but I trust his judgment well enough to follow his recommendations for what are the best Ellery Queen stories. So I've compiled his top 11 books, but obviously they're all in different order. But for me, I like to read things in publication order. The fifth highest ranked book in his best Ellery Queen books list is the Chinese Orange Mystery. It also happens to be the 8th book of the series, published in 1934. Therefore, out of the list, this is the earliest one in publication order. So I started with this for my project. I think this is a really great place to start because it is highly praised for being one of the best locked room mysteries ever published. And after reading the book, I must admit I can see where they are coming from. So if you're watching this video, I assume you also have read this book or have a surface level understanding of who Ellery Queen is, or of this book at the very least. So I won't really dive super deep into the plot of the book itself. I recommend just read it on your own in your own time. But the basics is that Ellery Queen is introduced to this mystery when his friend Donald Kirk, who is the head of the publishing house The Mandarin, invites him to assess his business associate Felix Burns. However, everything is thrown into chaos when the day that Ellery Queen is being introduced to the office and all of the people involved in Donald Kirk's life, an unknown man is found dead in the anteroom next to Donald Kirk's office. Everyone who lives and works in the building is officially under suspicion, as all of them had access to that room, but at the same time, that room is also locked from... There's only two ways to get inside the room. One is the door that connects to the office of Donald Kirk, and the other leads into the hallway. Only two people have entered that room as far as the reader knows, which is when James Osborne, the secretary to Donald Kirk, led the victim into the anteroom to wait, and Nurse Diversey, who came in before the victim even arrived and ate a tangerine. Once they discovered the body, they realized that nobody knows who this man is, as the guest did not share the name to the reader nor to anyone, and nobody recognizes the man. And what's more puzzling than anything is that the entire room, including the victim's clothes, is on backwards. The books on the shelves are backwards, the shelves are askewed, the lampshades is on upside down, his shirt is buttoned at the back, and his pants, like everything's backward. That's kind of the gist of it. I'm gonna switch right on to the vlog of when I was basically trying to solve the mystery, as well as my reaction to finding out that I was right with my solution. Okay, I am at 77% of the video. I've had it for 1.75 speed for a while because it's getting really good. Like, I really want to finish this today. So I feel like we're about to find out the solution. And then I thought, okay, I might as well film it and see what happens. Okay, so go ahead and say it's Osborne. I can't remember his name. Mr. Osborne, the secretary, the one who showed him to the room in the first place. And the only, person that can account for the closeness to the office is him. Motive? No idea. But in terms of plausibility and opportunity, I think he's the only one that really stood out to me. I would be really surprised, but also not really quite surprised if it turns out to be Donald Kirk, because there's just so many, like, everything about this story has so far revolved around him that I'm kind of like, what is going on? Like, at every turn, it's him. He's so, like, there's a reasonable enough explanation for his involvement with everything, but it's just so crazy that he is entangled in everything. And yeah, let me see. So it could be Donald Kirk just for the shock factor. In general, he's just so entangled with the story. No idea how he would have, like, maybe he's in collusion with Mr. Osborne, his secretary. Don't know. So that's my final thing. It's Mr. Osborne. I don't want it to be Mr. Osborne because the reader has been made to feel invested in his kind of love story with the nurse. I feel like, are they in it together? I don't know. Because why else? You know what? I'm thoroughly impressed by how well this story has gripped me. So I am really curious about the ending. So good pick for the first book so far in terms of the Ellery Queen series. I feel like because I've picked this one, I've avoided most of the like period typical sexism and like racism in the story. There's still some in there, but I'm like, as for the first ever book that I've encountered from this series, it's a good pick. So all right, without further ado, let's figure out what's happening.
Except the thunder of feet running down the stairs, said the inspector placidly. I've got the funniest feeling that even if we did miss out in... Might have known, grumbled Sergeant Velly, looking to drag a single explanatory word out of him until he was mentally satisfied and he had built up a flawless and impenetrable argument. Who or why? The inspector gasped. Do you realize what do you mean, El? For Jiminy's sake, Mother, to be sure, by a process of logical reasoning, arrive at the one and only possible solution? Ellery Queen.
Okay, so we are finally at the point where we will definitely know. And you know what? I'm gonna go take a shower. That's one of the biggest reasons why I really wanted to finish this, is because I want to go take a shower. I want to be clean the next morning. It is right now 11:30 p.m. That might be too late for a shower for some of you, but I still want to take one nonetheless. I want to take a shower, and I'm going to take that time in the shower to really think about what the solution might be. So we've got hints: the spears, the bag with the black coat and the outfits, and then basically everything else. My theory, which I'll stick to, is that it was Mr. Osborne. Again, I don't really want it to be Mr. Osborne, but he just seems to have the opportunity to do literally anything. It would be cool if I could figure it out, but I'm here for the entertainment of a puzzle, not to solve puzzles myself. Okay, I'm back. Freshly showered. It's good that I showered, because I would have steamrolled ahead with the final ending and not even told you one of my other theories that I had before. I've always been thinking about why the room has been turned upside down or backwards or whatever. And my initial theory was that it was trying to hide something that, you wouldn't, if it was the only thing that you noticed in the room that was different, you would have immediately pointed it out as part of the crime. But because the entire room is turned backwards or whatever, then you're less likely to find, you won't be able to know that that was like missing. For example, the way that the room was described in the text was like the lamps were turned upside down, the books were that were facing the title that was supposed to be facing out of the room were facing inside the bookshelf instead. I think it has something to do with the books, or just like something that is hidden in plain sight, that the room being turned inside out or upside down is helping to hide or conceal. So that's one thing. And then I feel like we haven't completely understood why Marcella stole those books in the first place, the Hebrew ones. No idea. That was kind of brushed off, and they all were like, oh, they all knew that Marcella was the one who stole the books, but she didn't explain why she did that in the first. Maybe I wasn't paying attention hard enough, because I am listening to this at like 1.5 speed. And then the coat. So the dead man's clothes were turned backwards, right? So that it's facing the front or something like that. So his buttons were at the back. So they have to have been his clothes. There has to be something about that jacket that made it so that they couldn't have found it on that man. And so they had to send it away, and they also had to do something about his current clothes, the clothes that were still on him, that made it so that your attention is drawn on the fact that his clothes were turned backwards or inside out, rather than the fact that he was missing a jacket and the rest of his clothes. Something like that. So the missing clothes, something about the room that is being concealed, and lastly, it is something about the spears. I don't know about that. I don't fully understand or grasp why that might be relevant. So he was killed with a blow to the head, and then at the same time, the spears were also stuck towards out of his head, something like that. Okay, yeah, so that's everything. I still feel like, just by process of elimination, it is Mr. Osborne, the secretary, because who else is kind of there? But then why would Mr. Osborne do such a thing? I don't know. Okay, let's play it.
Came to shore, and its sullen backwashes. Swift currents race beneath us supreme. In another metaphor, Daniel Webster once said that mind is the great lever of all things. That's just for the case, or are you working on some far-fetched, crazy detective story idea for a book? Be the head. That's most important. Think he can do it? Might. He'll probably have to get Krabby's help in the weights. String him together with wire or something, muttered the inspector. Juno ran. A moment, young limb. Perhaps you'd better buy us have had to fall roughly toward that cleared space on the other side of the doorway. But why should the murderer want him to fall precisely that way, let alone...
So, this is a bit too much for me, because I can't really visualize how this body is how it's falling. Like, it's just, I think maybe if I saw this as a TV show, then it would make sense, but like, it's a bit too much for my brain to visualize. So it's Mr. Osborne. That's the guy. I don't know why. Also, like, it gels, because he would be the only one who knew anything about the stamp. So in between, when the Catholic priest, the Catholic missionary, introduced himself to Mr. Osborne and he led him to the anteroom, I guess they just started talking, and then he murdered him. Mr. Osborne would be the only one, besides Mr. McGowan and Mr. Donald Kirk, to know anything about stamps. So it has to have been him. And I guess he murdered the guy because he wanted to marry the lady, the nurse Diversi. That's the motive? Or why? Money and love.
James Osborne covered his face with his hands and said, "Yes, I did it. I murdered him."
Told you. I told you.
Said Ellery a moment later, regarding the cowering man with pity. But by his own admission, Osborne was the only constant tenant of that office during the murder period. The visitors, McGowan, Miss Sewell, Miss Temple, Miss Diversey, were eliminated, because had one of them been the murderer, he or she could have left the scene of the crime by the corridor door from this room, and therefore would have bolted the office door from the inside of this room, without having to resort to the mechanical method Osborne used. Or, to put it another way, since anyone, I shan't be able to resist the temptation to entitle it The Chinese Orange Mystery. This concludes the reading of The Chinese Orange Mystery by Ellery Queen.
There we go.
1934.
I feel bad. So does that mean he just jumped off the building and killed himself? Poor Miss Diversey. That's so sad. Poor guy. You really feel for it. But, sometimes you gotta kill your darlings. It's good. I liked it a lot. Not bad at all. very enjoyable and very like solvable. Like you don't have to figure out the locked room component of it all to figure it out and to enjoy it at the very least, because I would never in a million years have conjured up that scenario in my brain. I do feel so bad for Mr. Osborne. Like he probably could have, like, a passing remark from Miss Diversey was, if she just hadn't said that, she probably said it in jest. She didn't mean it. She probably would have like married him if he had just proposed. Oh, poor guy. I feel so bad. So just in case you missed it, the culprit was James Osborne. He is the secretary, as I mentioned. He killed our victim, who turned out to be an unnamed American Catholic missionary from China who was selling a stamp to Donald Kirk so that Osborne could get money from the expensive stamp. Like he'll steal it for himself, sell it for himself, and get the money for himself so that he could entice Miss Nurse Diversey into marrying him. And as you can tell from my reaction, I was a bit like sad for him because I love a kind of happy ending. I mean, we did get a happy ending with Joe Temple and Donald Kirk, but like I don't know why, for some reason I didn't really have any personal feelings about Donald Kirk. I kind of liked Joe as a character, but like I wasn't really invested in their romance in the same way that I was invested in the romance with Nurse Diversey and James Osborne. I think it's because they were both introduced first, and I just really felt the level of affection that James Osborne had for Miss Diversey. The working class, I think, deserve a happy ending. That's what all of these detective stories end up becoming about anyway. Class, money. So in conclusion, I really enjoyed this book. The times I've tried to venture outside of my Agatha Christie obsession, I feel like I don't really find the way that they've written things or the way that the characters are very engaging, and so this is a huge compliment in the way that I was so eager to not only like find out what happened but also make sure I finish it in one go. I think the characters are really fleshed out without it being kind of dragged on for too long. The necessary ones at the very least. I think some people are kind of created to be tropes to to become a plot device to keep the narrative going. That would be people like Marcella. Like I don't really know much about her. We didn't even hear much about her either. And again, like I was still confused about why she stole those Hebrew books. Like I don't really understand what that. Irene Lowe's or Sowell, whichever it is. I mean, she fulfilled her role as the femme fatale for sure, but like I'm kind of like whatever. It seemed a bit like unlikely that she would find out this information from like that whole backstory with Marcella was a bit like what, but it contributed to the story at the very least. There is still that period typical sexism and racism, especially in regards to China kind of being associated with being backwards and therefore primitive in comparison to Western American culture. But I think having Joe Temple as a character helped alleviate some of that, because she's kind of there to be the expert on China and is therefore present to counter some of the comments that Ellery and therefore maybe a potential reader might make about the Chinese people, by basically saying like, hey man, this is just the Chinese culture, just like how America has a culture. You might think that it's backwards, but to them it makes perfect sense, and we should all kind of let that be. And I feel like this is kind of super bare minimum. But again, I'm not reading these books for political correctness, right? So you kind of just have to let it be. And thankfully it didn't really get too in the way of my enjoyment. I've always been willing to set aside some of that stuff if it like makes sense for the story. So I'm really looking forward to reading further on in the series. The next book in this Ellery Queen reading project is going to be The Door Between, which is the 11th book in the Ellery Queen canon, but the Summation Gathering channel has listed it as number 8 on his ranked list of best Ellery Queen books. Excited to branch out again. I hope you guys enjoyed this mini reading vlog, and I hope you guys follow along for the rest of this Ellery Queen reading project. Please let me know what you guys thought of this book, or what you think of the comments that I made about this book in the comment section. Whether or not there is a particular Ellery Queen book that you recommend. What's your favorite Ellery Queen book? Which one are you excited for me to cover in the future? So subscribe if you haven't. I post videos about music, books, films sometimes, and a little bit about my life. Follow my other YouTube channel, by the way. I recently launched it. It's called Sintanography. All my social media links are down in the description if you guys want to follow me there. My Patreon and Coffee pages are also down in the description in case you want to support me financially, give me a tip. I have some bonus videos in my Patreon page if you want more videos. And yeah, can't wait to share my love with you again next time. I'll see you guys soon. Bye! Cheers. I'm filming this really quickly because I want to go to bed and be lazy.